before, I want to thank the grandmas for coming. Appreciate given these times for you to come out the door and be here. It's really special. It's always good for the families. And make sure you take good ground when you go home. Both of you, right? Yeah. Don't forget one over the other. I've been there. Yeah. And if I were German and Polish, you can only imagine how that war went, right? All right. So, what is a great day for scouting? This is. I want to welcome all the families and to celebrate this great accomplishment in the lives of the scouts behind us. Isaac Elias, Eagle Scout number 43, Robert Haas, number 44, Alex Mead, number 46, and Dan Carita, Eagle Scout number 49. After our 10th Scout Court of Honor in December 2019, we said we would never get that big again as far as doing them all at once. And of course, that was before COVID hit and changed everything anyways. And of course, we got bans to the parking lot. And so we discussed having a virtual Court of Honor because we have number 10 Eagle Scouts now, or to be honored. And we discussed having a virtual Eagle Court of Honor and decided that really, amongst the troop leadership, that nothing beats an in-person activity where you get to sit with friends, you have food, you break bread with each other at the table, and you get to share the emotions of watching great men become Eagle Scouts. So we decided we'd wait, and here we are today. So although we have 10 new Eagle Scouts today, we're only celebrating 4. We have another 6, many of them are at college, and we will try to do this somewhere in a winter break time frame where we can have them be here. And then, of course, I know of at least another 1 whose paperwork is in. I know another 2 that should have their paperwork. Henry. Yeah. Finn. See, Finn knows he's not even here. He's gone. Finn. Yeah. So there's another 3, so that's 9. So we're not going to go with 10. So let's go. Come on, guys. Pick up the pace. All right. Okay. Now, this is also a significant day. Because as we reflect on the 20 years that have passed since the tragic events that occurred on September 11, 2001, it seems only appropriate, after we have paused yesterday to remember the fallen, we celebrate today what makes this country great. Although none of these young men were even alive 20 years ago, they serve as some of the best examples of leadership and selfless service that will lead this country into the future. So here we are, celebrating 4 of our Eagles today. We have more to come. Some of our scouts are away at college, like I said, and we'll celebrate their achievements closer to the winter break. As we look to the 4 scouts in front of us, I want to remind them to look to the left and to the right, except for you guys on the end. Guys, gentlemen, these are your brothers. You have literally walked the same trail, each in your own way, all achieving the same summit. Each of you will have the Eagle Medal pinned on you by your family today. So today we gather to officially recognize, celebrate, congratulate, and perhaps roast a little bit our newest Eagle Scouts. Yes, achieving Eagle is definitely a high point in anyone's scouting career. It represents a level of competence and skills and capability of leadership that is not easily matched anywhere else. But this isn't the end. There are many paths that lay ahead. More adventures to be had, more sharing of the scouting spirit, and fortunately for this troop, continued participation in the troop's activities and operation. And this is something I really cannot overemphasize. Each of these scouts will continue to remain active in this troop and take active leadership roles. In so many troops in this area, Eagles leave as soon as they make the rank, often referred to as eagling out. I've talked to many scoutmasters, and I hear that lament routinely. Oh yeah, I got an eagle and he eagled out. Well, there's no requirement to leave once you make eagle. In fact, it's encouraged the opposite, to stay and participate and help. Tristan is a good example, one of our assistant scoutmasters. Right? By the way, you get an honorable mention later on in this, so hang in there. Yeah. Oh yeah. We share the wealth. We really do. Yeah. So I can assure you, having people, scouts stay, participate in the troop, even after they make Eagle, really truly makes this troop a special place. So just a moment ago, we heard the question, so what is an Eagle Scout? And we were given several characteristics that make up an Eagle, like being comfortable with nature. You can identify local animals and plants, including poisonous plants. So immediately following this ceremony, how about we all send you back to the back 40, and you can find the poison ivy back there. Hold on, right? No? Okay. All right. Maybe they don't know that. All of these characteristics are spot on, the ones you heard. let us not forget perhaps the very most important trait of an Eagle Scout. He's a leader. Not just at the troop, school, or church, but everywhere and at any time. The skills that a scout must learn on the path to Eagle are not there just so that you can check a box and move on. But they are there to help others when needed, to take charge when called upon, to step up and do the hard right rather than the easy wrong. When those moments come and the scout is left trying to determine his best course of action, it is the scout oath and law that often provides that asset, that true north, if you will, which guides them to success. All of these scouts carry that moral compass with them. I've seen it personally, and as the map of their life unfolds in front of them, they have the skills to orient that map and find their way. Now, I'm sure you'd like me to go into great detail on each scout. But for the sake of all our time, I'll only highlight some of the more interesting moments each scout has had along the way to Eagle. These are moments that can bring laughter, joy, and frustration, but when taken together, make up our memories of our scouts. Scoutmasters, myself and all my assistant scoutmasters, see these moments. We know that we are seeing the pure gold of the scouting movement, and it's truly why we do what we do, and why we stay. So, let's start with our 43rd Eagle Scout, Isaac Elias. Isaac always appears cheerful. You can always count on Isaac to cheer the other scouts up. In fact, Isaac was voted Mr. Positivity by his crew members at Philmont. He always has a smile on his face. But as I've learned over the years, that smile's a little beguiling. Once you get to know Isaac, that smile's a little impish. Behind the smile is a hint of mischief, which every boy has, and every Boy Scout taps into. Because without that hint of mischief, there is no adventure. And without adventure, why be in Boy Scouts? Isaac has that sense of adventure, which explains his desire to go to Philmont, not once, but twice. Either that or he's left for punishment. Not sure which. Isaac's sense of adventure also leads him to new discoveries. For example, during one of many Philmont training hikes in 2018, Isaac was amazed at the floating snow. He saw one of the screens. Even after it was explained to him that it was only foam, it caught on because it became, quite frankly, a shout-out anytime anyone ever saw foam in the water. Even during the trip to 2021 trek to Philmont, guys would be hiking, they would say, "Hey, Isaac, look at the floating snow." Because I'm sure Isaac would tip his head and say, "Yeah, thanks." But as they hiked up trails that were flowing with water next to the stream, they'd always see it. Now, again, you have to cut him some slack. All right? He lives in Virginia. You don't see a lot of snow. And given his ancestry, he doesn't get a lot of snow from there either. So snow's kind of a big thing for him. Right? Now, let us not, and I spell that K-N-O-T, forget Isaac's propensity for getting rope wrapped around him and falling right about the time he needs to be running like a dog in the Klondike Derby. But Isaac recovered. He got back up, got himself somewhat untangled, an amazing comeback to catch up and still place second place. More memorable, however, was how the troop recognized his contribution at the end of the race with the congratulatory dog pile with Isaac laying down in the snow, which is how he started the race. This all probably explains Isaac's Eagle project being for the, you know, the dogs. Now, let me assure you, where I've always thought Isaac would prove his mettle, had it. His mom had some serious doubts. That's right, yeah. In fact, I can remember distinctly at a troop meeting long ago when Sylvia, that's Isaac's mom, by the way, she's the one who made those Oreo balls, huh? Let's hear about those, yeah. I understand the real recipe has 1 minute, but, you know, for scouting, it's scouting friendly, so it's all good. Anyways, she was concerned, you know, she said, I don't think he's progressing fast enough, and she was maybe having to pull him out of scouts. So one of the joys of being a scoutmaster is when you get to talk to the moms and explain to them that their special little boy is just normal, and that it takes a while for them to build up the skills and confidence needed to push forward. You see, you have to tune the engine before you can really rev the engine, right? So I assured Mom that indeed Isaac was not a slacker, and that he was going to come around in due course. So I think it was about the time he made Life Scout. He'd been a patrol leader for a year, done very well, and he'd just got his life rank pinned on, kissed his mom dutifully, and we have the picture to prove it, that's right. Then I gave Sylvia a little wink and I said, "See, told you we get him there. And if I recall, she was very gracious and said yes. She admitted the old scoutmaster knew what he was doing. But with all that said, let me point out to Isaac that amongst your 4 buddies up there, you only have 36 merit badges. They have all more. So, if you don't want to prove your mother that you're slack, or pick up the pace, brother. All right? Before you turn 18, you got 10 months, so let's go. All right. So, see, Mom, you just got to keep pushing. Now, speaking of taking a while to get your engine tuned, let's now turn to Robert Ox. He's number 44. Now, there are some boys when they join and you watch them in the beginning, you wonder if they're going to figure this scout thing out. He's one of those guys that Scoutmaster sit on the porch with a cup of coffee and he looked and said, something wrong with that boy. But, as a new scout, Robert routinely refused to eat. You would normally find him sitting by himself or trying to hang around by the adults. I remember at one of the campouts distinctly seeing Robert sitting by himself, literally, just out there in the middle of the field, not eating. I pointed this out to his father, Robert Sr., who, by the way, great advancement chair. I appreciate all the work he does. Let's give him a round of applause. And like a true father, Robert Sr. said, well, this son will figure it out, he'll go hungry. See, this is why we don't want moms coming on campouts. Mom would want to serve him chicken soup and everything else. Now, we'll figure it out. He'll either eat grass or go back to the patrol and eat. And sure enough, he did. He figured it out. A smart lad, Robert did eventually eat and progress in rank, but lacked that confidence to lead. In these situations, one of the things we like to do is let a young potential leader become a den chief in Cub Scouts. Unfortunately for ASM Jim Mata, Robert became his den chief. Now I understand that ASM Mata put Robert in charge of the Cub Scout activity, and within about 2 minutes, Robert came back asking Mr. Mata what to do. Robert was shocked that the Cub Scouts weren't listening to him, and they were running around in a typical but unruly fashion. For the parents here, that should come as no surprise. You know, what do you expect a 7 or 8-year-old's going to do, right? But for Robert, this was quite a shock. Anyways, he figured out, got control of the group, and although he understood now that it didn't just happen automatically, he got it together, and with this, Robert's experience grew. In fact, Robert grew. Robert would strive to become a patrol leader. Indeed, he did become the patrol leader of the Invisible Patrol. His sense of anxiety, however, only increased as he feared being the first Invisible Patrol leader to lose at the Klondike Derby. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Invisibles have won, I think it's 8 straight years of competition at Klondike Derby. Now, for most of you, you don't understand this, but if you're the patrol leader who gets picked to be Invisibles, you start the ulcer real quick. Right? Robert realized his leadership ability didn't lie in being the strongest, but in his knowledge and preparation. Robert gamed out ahead of time every possible scenario and was fully prepared. His ability to start fires and agility to think fast allows him to hold the district record at the fire competition that still stands to this day. In fact, because of Robert, they changed the rules. They change the rules every year because of this. Robert would succeed and bring home the trophy that year. He also established Robert's Rules of Order, Robert's Rules of Fire Building. Yeah. And along the way, Robert grew. A proud survivor of the Kirby Meade Death March, Robert would demonstrate his internal toughness at Philmont when he was really having trouble with his feet. As the youngest scout on the crew that year, and being the silent, proud, and sometimes emotional type, he didn't want to tell anybody. When he was falling asleep behind, when he was falling behind, he often said he was tired because he wasn't getting enough sleep. Well, his tent mate, Russell DeRozier, by the way, you know, we still talk to Russell, so he knew this was going to be it. Reported that Robert would repeat over and over again in his sleep that he got blisters. He got blisters. Apparently something gets lost in translation when you're asleep. So the adult advisors checked that out one day. It turns out he had like 5 or 6 blisters spread out over his feet and toes. So once discovered, Robert was forced to put his first aid knowledge into action and tend to his feet at each camp. This seemed to solve the sleep issue because Robert no longer talked about knee blisters in his sleep. Robert grew some more. The little boy who would sit by himself and not mingle with the other scouts became the senior patrol leader during the height of COVID. Robert would again have to find a way to lead the troop. Again, Robert realized his leadership ability didn't lie in being the strongest, but in his knowledge and preparation. His leadership during COVID was stellar, guiding the troop through a difficult time. With this experience, Robert grew some more. In fact, Robert just keeps growing. In fact, stand up, Robert. 6'3". It's hard to believe when he came, he was like, 3 foot nothing, right? So, Robert grew. He grew some more. Today, he's just gruesome. Fortunately for us, though, he's also the youngest up here today, and we will be blessed with having him in the troop for a few more years. Now, turning to Eagle Scout number 43. Alex. Where do I begin? It's a good thing we have a limited time here because I could spend an hour just telling Alex stories. But I'm going to hit the highlights. Alex's path to Eagle resulted in many firsts for both him and the troop. Alex took the idea of a scout being thrifty to heart, and he saved up all of his candy bars and brought them to his new scout camp out. He figured this way he could eat them without the food provided. A first for him, but not for the troop. Not our first rodeo, folks. We discovered his candy bar hoard and forced him to eat the food like the rest of the scouts, much to his chagrin. Alex also seemed to have a fear of bugs, as he decided to spray bug spray on his tent and his first kitty camp out. Of course, he had to take the tent home and clean that. And of course, who could forget Alex's memorable role as lobster boy at the first beach camp out? Using his superpower of ignoring all the good advice of using suntan lotion, we discovered that Alex could actually turn his entire body into the same shade of color, red, as his hair. But Alex, along with Robert and Dan, is also a survivor of the Meads Death March. And together these events may have thinned out Alex's blood, which might explain that regardless of how hot it could be outside, or in the summer, Alex was adamant that he was cold enough to be wearing this hoodie all the time. Alex carries on the tradition of one of our previous Eagle Scouts in the troop, Will Finn. Alex also claims, like Will Finn, that he's always cold. In fact, I saw Will Finn down in Florida not too long ago, and in fact, he was wearing a hoodie. Okay. But you got to know something. He's Cambodian. Okay? Adopted by an Irish family, so he's got an excuse. What's yours? Now, except perhaps this past summer, when Alex was on staff at Philmont, where he discovered that the sun at 6,000 feet elevation is actually pretty darn hot and necessitates a portable air conditioner, which he bought and put in his tent. He might be slow, but he's no fool. Now, Alex also freaked out about being the Invisibles patrol leader. He was there before Robert Haas. Like Robert, he didn't want to be the first to lose. Fortunately, he succeeded, and with his patrol, brought home first place in the skills competition. Ever the happy wanderer, Alex is the first scout to have the rare distinction of having two Life Scout boards in review in less than 24 hours at summer camp. I'll let him explain that one. Alex also has the rare distinction of being the first scout I've ever seen to get ASM DeRozier's perpetual smiling face to turn into a not-so-smiling face at the Troops Do-It-Yourself Summer Camp. This necessitated an immediate one-on-one transmission from your favorite fuzzy and warm Scoutmaster, which sadly was not Alex's first. But, despite all this, yes, Alex's path to Eagle has been one of many firsts. And although we highlight the stumbles along the way, let us not forget his accomplishments of earning 61 merit badges, or 7 palms, representing the troop on our color guard at the Council's University of Scouting, Alex's participation on the Sully Chapter's Order of Arrow Ceremonies team, his success as a senior patrol leader, his selection to become a vigil member of the Order of Arrow, his selection as a staff member at Philmont, and this very important continuation of service now as an assistant scoutmaster to our troop. A position that Alex now shares with his father, which I'm personally grateful for both from him and Kirby to be serving. So Alex, despite all that, thank you. Now, they say that good decisions come from experience, and that experience comes from bad decisions. In which case, Alex will be able to share many of his experiences and help our scouts do good decisions. This leads us to Eagle Scout number 49. Now, Dan too has had many stories to accompany him on his way to Eagle. Like Alex, Dan made an impression at his very new scout camp out. As many of you know, we like to not only sell popcorn, but also eat it. In fact, our troop runs hot and cold popcorn. Our hot popcorn is spiced up with pepper oil. That's right. Little Southwest Mexico, New Mexico thing that Mr. Miller brought. Dan, not one to be shy about taking out challenges, took up eating the hot, spicy popcorn. In fact, he ate so much of it, it pretty well turned his stomach inside out and released that popcorn in a rather unpleasant display of emesis. Medical people here? Yeah, emesis. Yeah, in other words, he vomited. Office cookies. Upchuck, bark, you get the picture. So, not only did Dan not heed the warnings of spicy popcorn, he also generally didn't pay attention to good guidance when it came to dressing for success. Take the troops' first trip to the beach. The beach camp out was a scout favorite. The first trip we went on also is known for the violent wind and rainstorm that came upon us suddenly. Dan, fully prepared with his rain gear, forgot that to be successful, one has to wear the pants. In fact, putting the raincoat on without the pants almost gave Dan a case of hypothermia. Of course, he wasn't as bad as Tristan, who did go into the early stages of hypothermia. And yes, Tristan is one of our Eagle Scouts, number 36 to be exact. So, for our younger scouts out there, our new guys especially, right? You do not have to freeze yourself to death to become an Eagle Scout. In fact, we kind of frown upon it. So, heed that lesson, please. Now, of course, as mentioned earlier, Dan's relationship with food has had its ups and downs. One of his lower moments occurred following an order of rare event when the group stopped for dinner. Dan decided to eat his body weight pasta, and of course fell ill afterwards to the point of a food coma. Fortunately, he was able to refrain from demonstrating another example of emesis. Of course, as we saw his past summer camp, Dan's love of cheese danishes can be problematic for those around him, as Dan gets to eat the Danish his fellow 10-mates do push-ups. But on the positive side, Dan was able to build into his Eagle Project an entire phase from nothing but pizza. Not quite sure how pizza fits into a conservation project of building check dams. This is the mind of a teenager and a scout who was following the 13th Scout Walk. The scout is always hungry. Now, speaking of Eagle projects, Dan's affinity to technology is why he probably used picks and shovels for his conservation project. Apparently, Dan's difficulties in getting his Eagle paperwork done in time was usually the fault of the family's printer. The fact that he only started printing his paperwork 5 minutes before it was due. And I understand that the tardiness of the family printer is also responsible for multiple school assignments not being completed or just going missing. Bad printer. Despite Dan's up and downs, his relationship with the troop has been exceptional. Dan has been the Philpa, is also a survivor of the Meade Death March. That's quite an accomplishment for those who don't know. You can ask Colonel Meade about that one. Yeah. He has been a Senior Patrol Leader, represented our troop to the Council Color Guard along with Alex and Robin, served as an OA ceremonist along with all 4 of our Eagles up here today, and is currently serving as the Sully District Chapter Chief. Now that he's a senior in high school, it could come as no surprise that Dan's relationships are looking up. In fact, at this past summer camp, one of the female counselors, Dan's longest wife, finally remembered his name. Dan was so happy he probably exclaimed, "She knows my name!" in front of the whole camp. And now we know Dan's name. But the moments I've described here are only snapshots of many that have occurred of all these young men. Each has shown their willingness to guide, mentor, cheer up, and help others. Each has taken on the extra work that is required to be a leader. Each has led by example. And in the end, each one of you have demonstrated the perseverance and passion needed to achieve long-term goals. You have shown that you have the fortitude to work strenuously towards challenges, maintaining effort and interest over years despite failure, adversity, and plateaus in progress. If you know anything about today's youth, no easy feat. Each of you have found your own path on the Trail of the Eagle. And no scout makes it to the top of the Eagle Trail without tripping, falling, and getting back up. Each of these young men have demonstrated the ability to be a leader, and as they go forward in their lives, I believe each will carry with them that flame of scouting spirit and shed that light which comes from it on all who are around them. Shortly, Assistant Scoutmaster Jim Lotto, the Life to Eagle coach, for each of these scouts will come up and charge our newest Eagles with the traits of honor, loyalty, courage, cheerful service, and vision. It is therefore with great pride that I officially welcome Isaac, Robert, Alex and Dan to the rank of Eagle Scout. And remind them, as I remind all our Eagle Scouts, once an Eagle, always an Eagle. Congratulations, gentlemen.
Now it is time for the highlight of our program, the presentation of the Eagle Scout Award. We will begin by having Life's Eagle Coach and Assistant Scoutmaster Jim Mata come forward to give the Eagle charge. Becoming an Eagle Scout is not the end of the journey, it is merely the beginning. As Eagle Scouts, you have far greater responsibilities than you had before. To explain those, Asa Mata will share the Eagle charge.
Becoming an Eagle Scout is a great accomplishment. Being an Eagle is a great responsibility. As an Eagle, the Scout Oath and Scout Law should take on new meaning for you. The motto and slogan take on new urgency. As an Eagle, your first obligation is to live with honor. You are a marked man, a leader. For good or ill, people will follow the example you set. Give up anything before you give up your reputation as good man. The white of the Eagle badge represents honor. Your second obligation as an Eagle Scout is to be loyal. As a follower, you promise to be loyal to those who love you. Now, as a leader, you must also be loyal to those who love you, treating them as you would want to be treated. You must also be loyal to your ideals, not letting others sway you from your course. The blue of the Eagle badge represents loyalty. Your third obligation as an Eagle Scout is to be courageous. Stepping into your new role as a leader, you will face many challenges and obstacles. You must have the courage to do what's right, no matter what other people do or say. The red of the Eagle badge represents courage. Your fourth obligation is to serve others, for a leader is above all to serve. Let the practice of the daily good term lead to a lifetime of service, for only in giving of yourself can you give anything of value. Just as it always has, the scroll on your badge represents service. Your final obligation as an Eagle Scout is to have vision. As a leader, you must not blaze your own trail. Just as a bald eagle soaring high above the ground can look far into the distance, so too must you look far into the future. Many people will follow you. Only with vision will you lead them in the right direction. The silver eagle hanging from your badge represents vision. These then are your obligations as an Eagle Scout: honor, loyalty, courage, service, and vision. By these obligations, you can meet your truth, your community, and your nation for a better tomorrow. Now, a few words from each of you, since I had the distinct pleasure of working with each of you in very different ways. So, as you all heard, quite a bit of humor surrounding each of them. And it wouldn't be fair to let them get away from me that quickly without some confusing myself. So that cheerful smile that Isaac is representing, and it was alluded to that you could never see him without it. Well, I saw a very different Isaac on the other side of the table. I feel like the job description, as told to me, was very undersold because it ended up being a full-time grammar teacher, less so much than a coach. So I feel like sports coaches, right, there's that competitive spirit, right? Well, these young men, when I'm coaching them, all they want is that Eagle rank. And who's standing in their way but me? Sorry, fellas, that's the job. So for Robert, as you all heard, he was my debt chief. And for Isaac and Robert specifically, they were disadvantaged because they were handovers from Mr. Ashton. He had retired. So I got to prepare this Eagle Scout paperwork, not being involved with the selection process. So for Robert, I got the tail end of reviewing that project, just the paperwork part, but not the planning and not the day-to-day discussion of how I get to work with the individuals. That started with me starting after work doing stuff. And so I wouldn't, say really, but Robert definitely got a little sassy, even though his grammar wasn't always the best, and I'd say maybe ask your mom to peer review it, and would outright refuse. No, I got it.